A cold rain hit the diner glass while everyone looked away. It's Marv, working the graveyard shift again. Poured coffee for a guy in a scuffed coat, and still couldn't clock who was really loaded. A quiet man sat alone, holding a battered leather wallet. The manager stepped up to force him out into the storm. One waitress took a stand before anyone knew his true net worth. Subscribe to the channel to follow every story. Midnight on Route 9 smells like burnt coffee and stale rain. The neon sign flickers every time a heavy truck rolls by. Inside, the air stays thick with grease and old stories. The clock on the wall ticks louder than the radios. Shift workers know this hours-long silence all too well. Raindrops slide down the front windows like slow tears. Only 3 tables are occupied on a dreary night like this. The register drawer bell rings softly after every ring-up. Exhausted staff count minutes until the sunrise shift arrives. Out on the highway, headlamps cut through thick fog. Most folks stopping by just want a place to stay dry. Between us, night shifts always reveal who people really are. The front door chime sounded sharp as the wind blew in. A quiet traveler stepped inside, shaking rain off his coat. His collar was turned up against the cold midnight breeze. He carried no luggage except a scuffed canvas shoulder bag. Mud splatters covered the heel of his vintage work boots. He headed straight for the corner booth away from lights. His hands were rough, looking like he worked hard labor. Notice how nobody paid attention to his calm posture. He politely asked for black coffee and the cheapest meal. His voice was low, polite, and completely unhurried. The damp coat smelled like wet wool and open road. He checked an old analog watch on his left wrist. Nothing about his clothes screamed fortune or high status. Yet he moved with a steady confidence that felt different. 2 late-night patrons at the counter turned to look. Whispers started floating across the quiet dining room. A guy in a polished jacket smirked at the man's coat. They judged his worn boots before he even took a seat. People love assuming wealth comes with designer labels. Snickering comments echoed over the background jukebox music. The stranger ignored the glances and kept reading his paper. His quiet demeanor only seemed to annoy the regulars more. One customer tapped his fingers loudly against the glass. They complained the atmosphere was ruined by vagrants. Look at how fast folks turn hostile over simple clothes. The stranger took a calm sip from his steaming mug. He didn't offer a single word in his own defense. The hostility in the room continued to build silently. Superficial judgments usually cost people the biggest lessons. The shift manager stormed out from behind the kitchen doors. He wiped his hands on an apron, looking visibly annoyed. He catered exclusively to wealthy regulars who tipped big. He marched directly over to the stranger's booth. Without asking questions, he demanded to see some cash. He claimed the diner wasn't a shelter for homeless wanderers. Between us, managers like that only care about appearances. The stranger calmly reached for his internal jacket pocket. He pulled out a crumpled $5 bill for coffee. The manager scoffed and refused to let him stay seated. He pointed toward the rainy exit door with authority. The surrounding customers watched, waiting for him to leave. The quiet traveler didn't raise his voice or argue back. He simply placed his cup down without causing a scene. Tension reached a boiling point in the small restaurant. Just as he prepared to stand up, someone intervened. Just like an unexpected conflict popping up at breakfast, financial anxiety often strikes when you least expect it to hit. Most people assume they have a budgeting problem, but the real issue is usually the invisible leaks draining their accounts. Small recurring fees, miscalculated bills, and forgotten subscriptions quietly eat away at the money you worked so hard to earn. That is why I recommend reading The Silent Leak, a practical guide designed to uncover the hidden costs pulling your balance down. Instead of forcing you onto strict diets or painful sacrifices, it pinpoints the exact 12 places where money slips away daily. Scan the QR code right here on the screen to check it out, and finally stop your hard-earned dollars from vanishing into thin air. An ordinary young white American waitress in her 20s walked over fast. She set down a fresh pot of coffee between them. Ellie told the manager his money was already taken care of. She pointed out that every paying customer deserves respect. Reparaniso, she put her own tips on the line for a stranger. The manager glared at her, warning her about her job. She didn't back down or apologize for doing right. She offered the man a warm smile and a fresh menu. The stranger looked up, surprised by her unexpected kindness. He thanked her quietly as she refilled his cup to the brim. The rude patrons went silent, unhappy with her intervention. Ellie returned to her work without asking for anything. She treated him like royalty when everyone else saw trash. If you like stories of integrity, subscribe to the channel now. Little did she know, that $5 gesture changed everything. Ellie quietly wiped down the edge of the counter, keeping her eyes on the corner booth. The scruffy man sat alone, holding the warm mug with both hands like a lifeline. She grabbed the glass display dome near the register and pulled out a fresh slice of apple pie. The shift manager was busy counting receipts at the back, completely oblivious. Ellie set the plate down in front of the stranger without saying a single word. He looked up, surprised, his brow furrowing as he reached for his worn coat pocket. "I didn't order this, miss," he murmured softly, checking the spare change in his palm. "It's on the house." She smiled gently, or rather, on my tip jar. She reached into her rust-orange apron pocket and dropped $5 into the register drawer. "Repara nisso. A maioria teria virado as costas, mas ela gastou a própria comissão." The stranger stared down at the slice, his expression softening completely. For the first time in days, someone treated him like a human being instead of a nuisance. Se você curte histórias de justiça e empatia assim, se inscreva no canal para não perder o final. He took a small bite, savoring the warmth as rain lashed against the booth window. Ellie walked back toward the coffee pots, unaware that this small gesture was being carefully noted. Because Arthur Vance wasn't just hungry, he was testing the human heart. Between refilling mugs and wiping counters, Ellie kept working without a single pause. Arthur watched her handle an elderly customer who was struggling to read the menu. She didn't rush him. She leaned in, read the specials aloud, and brought extra sugar. Entre nós, o cara que comanda bilhões sabe reconhecer liderança genuína em qualquer lugar. When she returned to Arthur's table to top off his mug, he finally spoke up. "You work long hours here, miss?" he asked in a low, quiet tone. "Double shifts, mostly," Ellie answered, adjusting her apron. "Saving up for nursing school." Arthur nodded slowly. "Nursing requires patience. You seem to have plenty of it." "Life teaches you patience when you don't have shortcuts," she replied simply. If you're enjoying how Ellie stands her ground, leave a like on the video right now. His eyes glinted with something deeper than gratitude. He saw real dignity in her hustle. Most patrons who came through these doors barely looked the staff in the eye. They saw uniforms and order takers. Arthur saw someone holding a whole life together. He asked her about the diner, the manager, and how long the place had been open. Ellie explained that the landlord was threatening to sell the building to corporate developers. If the diner closed, 6 people on the graveyard shift would lose their livelihoods. Arthur took mental notes, remembering every detail she mentioned. Little did Ellie know, Vance Capital owned the debt holding that building together. The front doorbell chimed loudly as 2 men in tailored suits stepped into the diner. The lead businessman shook off his damp umbrella, looking around with disgust. He loudly complained about the smell of grease and the outdated vinyl booths. Ellie immediately walked over, placing 2 fresh menus on their table. "Good evening, gentlemen. What can I get started for you tonight?" she offered politely. The businessman snapped his fingers dismissively. "Espresso. Fast. And make sure the cup is clean. Repara no salto de salto alto. O cara acha que dinheiro dá direito de pisar em todo mundo." Ellie kept her composure, returning moments later with 2 fresh cups of black coffee. The businessman took 1 sip, scowled, and slammed the mug back onto the saucer. "This is lukewarm sludge. Is this how you treat paying customers in this dump?" "I'm sorry, sir. I'll brew a fresh pot right away," Ellie offered, reaching for the cup. He shoved her hand aside, causing the rest of the liquid to spill across her apron. "Don't touch it. You people are completely incompetent," he barked loudly. The entire diner fell dead silent as other late-night patrons turned to watch. Ellie stood there, her hands shaking slightly, refusing to break down in tears. Se você já presenciou alguém sendo humilhado no trabalho e sentiu raiva, comenta respeito aqui embaixo. The businessman stood up, towering over her with an arrogant grin. Call your manager right now before I have this low-rent grease trap shut down. Before Ellie could reply, a deep, calm voice cut through the tense room. She apologized and offered to fix it. That's more respect than you deserve. The arrogant businessman turned around, sneering at Arthur's scuffed coat. Mind your own business, bum, the suit spat back. This has nothing to do with you. Arthur slowly stood up from his corner booth, unhurried and completely unbothered. It becomes everyone's business when you treat a hard-working person like trash, Arthur said quietly. Você percebe a virada? O cara em roupas velhas encarando o engravatado sem piscar. The businessman laughed mockingly, gesturing toward Arthur's worn clothes. Look at you. You probably can't even afford the pie she gave you on charity. Sir, please, Ellie stepped between them, trying to de-escalate the rising fight. Don't defend him, Ellie, Arthur said gently. People like him confuse wealth with worth. The suit stepped closer, his face turning red with frustration. I make more in 1 hour than you'll see in 10 years, old man. Arthur just smiled faintly. Money only reveals who you were when nobody was watching. The rest of the patrons quietly began nodding in agreement with Arthur. Humiliated by the crowd's reaction, the businessman slammed his hand on the counter. That was the exact moment the shift manager stormed out of the back office. The manager barged into the aisle, looking frantically between the rich customer and Ellie. What on earth is going on out here? He shouted, ignoring Arthur completely. This waitress insulted me, and this vagrant is harassing my associate, the suit demanded. The manager's eyes narrowed as he turned his anger directly toward Ellie. Ellie, I told you we don't let people loiter here causing trouble for high-paying guests. He didn't cause trouble, sir. He was defending me after this man threw coffee, Ellie argued. I don't care about your excuses. Apologize to this gentleman right now, or hand over your apron. O gerente preferiu demitir a melhor funcionária, só para bajular terno caro. Ellie stood motionless, her heart pounding. Nursing school tuition depended on this job. I won't apologize for being treated disrespectfully, she said quietly, her voice firm. Then you're fired. Hand in your name tag and get out by morning. The manager snapped. The arrogant businessman smirked, triumphant, fixing his tie as if victory was won. Arthur Vance slowly reached into his inner jacket pocket, pulling out a small leather case. You might want to hold off on that firing until daybreak, manager, Arthur said smoothly, because in less than 3 hours, you won't be the one making decisions in this building. The manager scoffed, unaware that the real storm had just landed on his doorstep. Arthur placed a crisp napkin beside his empty coffee cup without saying a word. Underneath lay a heavy black card made of polished titanium, free of any logo. Only a clean gold phone number was embossed on its smooth surface. Beside the card, he tucked a stack of $100 bills bound by a rubber band. Ellie walked back to the booth, expecting to find pennies or a damp receipt. Instead, her breath hitched as her fingers touched the thick bundle of cash. $10,000 sat quietly under the diner's fluorescent light. She scanned the quiet parking lot, but the man in the scuffed boots was already gone. The shift manager stormed over, ready to scold her for lingering at the booth. He grabbed the black card, snickering at what he assumed was a fake prank. If you have ever received kindness when you least expected it, comment reward below. He flipped the metal card over and froze when he noticed the microchip on the back. His smug expression melted into pure confusion as the card's heavy weight sank in. Ellie held the cash tight, her hands shaking from both relief and shock. This money could pay off her mother's overdue medical bills in one single move. Outside, the first light of dawn began painting the rain-slicked asphalt blue. A deep rumble vibrated through the diner's glass windows just as morning hit. 3 pitch-black luxury SUVs pulled into the gravel lot in perfect sync. The chrome rims gleamed under the flickering neon sign of the highway diner. Men in tailored dark suits stepped out simultaneously into the chilly air. The manager pressed his nose against the window, his eyes wide with fear. The lead security detail pulled open the heavy diner door with authority. The brass bell above the door chimed loudly, cutting through the hum of the fridge. A tall executive carrying a sleek leather briefcase scanned the quiet room. He ignored the stuttering manager completely and walked straight toward Ellie. "Are you Miss Ellie?" he asked in a calm, highly formal tone. She nodded slowly, wiping her hands on her apron, unsure of what was happening. "Our chairman sent us to ensure your safety and hand-deliver a document." The manager stood frozen in the aisle, his mouth agape in total disbelief. He realized the customer he tried to evict was someone powerful. The executive opened the folder, revealing official corporate acquisition deeds. Everything was falling into place, but the biggest shock was still ahead. The rear door of the middle SUV opened slowly as the rain eased off. Out stepped the scruffy customer, now wearing a bespoke charcoal wool overcoat. It was Arthur Vance, sole founder of Vance Global Energy and Tech, a tech mogul worth over $40 billion who preferred traveling incognito. He walked back into the diner, his presence commanding the entire room. The arrogant patrons from earlier choked on their coffee in sheer embarrassment. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss another story like this. Arthur walked up to Ellie, offering a warm and genuine smile. "You treated me like a human being when everyone else saw a beggar," he said. The manager rushed forward, stammering apologies and bowing nervously. "Mr. Vance, if I had known who you were, I would have given you the head booth." Arthur turned slowly, his sharp eyes cutting right through the man's excuses. "That is exactly the problem," Arthur replied quietly. "Character is how you treat the helpless." He gestured to his legal team, who pulled out a thick blue binder. 30 minutes ago, my holding firm purchased this entire roadside property franchise." The manager's face drained of all color as he processed the news. He was no longer in charge of anything inside these four walls. When you finally gain total control over your territory, nobody can quietly take away what rightfully belongs in your hands. Inside this digital book, you will find a clear bill-by-bill breakdown that reveals where your daily cash vanishes without a trace. It walks you through simple audit checklists so you can immediately reclaim hundreds of dollars starting from the very first chapter. Imagine finishing every month with an actual surplus in your account, knowing every single dollar is accounted for and working for you. You do not need a higher salary to change your financial reality. You just need to spot the hidden leaks right in front of you. Scan the QR code on your screen, or click the pinned comment below to get your copy of the ebook and take back full control today. Arthur looked at the manager with calm, unwavering disappointment. "Your employment ends right now. Pack your belongings and leave the premises." The manager grabbed his coat and hurried out without saying another word. Arthur turned back to Ellie, handing her a silver fountain pen. "Ellie, this diner needs someone who understands respect and genuine hospitality. I am transferring 50% ownership of this property to your name." Tears welled in Ellie's eyes as she stared at the official deed document. "Plus, if you want it, my foundation will cover your university tuition in full." She'd only offered a slice of warm pie and a hot cup of coffee. Yet that simple gesture of empathy had altered her life trajectory forever. The rest of the diner staff broke into quiet applause in the background. Arthur shook her hand firmly before walking out into the crisp morning breeze. His convoy glided away down the quiet highway into the rising sun. Ellie looked out the glass window, holding the silver pen close to her chest. She flipped the open sign on the front door with a brand new sense of purpose. You never really know who is sitting across from you at a quiet counter. Kindness cost Ellie nothing that night, but it opened doors money alone could not buy. Sometimes the biggest tests in life come dressed in worn boots and a scuffed coat. How would you have reacted in Ellie's position during that midnight shift? If you watch this story all the way to the end, comment "finish" in the comments. That way I know who the real ones are who stick around for the full shift. Don't forget to subscribe to Marv for more stories of quiet justice every week. Take care of each other out there, keep your eyes open, and stay grounded. This is Marv, clocking off until the next late night shift. See you in the next one.